Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. This is the first part of our U Oregon Success Series. Those of us who kind of planned this series this week were really looking at what information do we want students to have going into their first term, their first fall term at U of O. And one of the pieces we really wanted to focus on was wellness, self-care, and managing stress in your first term and beyond. My name is Rebecca Hodges. I'm an advisor at U of O in the Office of Academic Advising. And our speakers, our guests today are from University Counseling Services. So they'll start off with a presentation focused on stress management, self-care, and then they'll open it up and talk a little bit more about resources on campus, all the resources that University of Oregon offers. And then afterwards, we'll open it up to some questions. So you feel free to submit questions for our guests today. Just a quick note before we get started, we are recording this session, but we did turn off student video and audio, so to try to protect attendees' privacy, but names will still show up, so just something to be aware of there. A couple ways you can submit questions, and please do submit questions if you have them for our guests today. You can either, if you don't mind it being public, you can submit questions in the Zoom chat down below, or feel free to send me questions specifically. I'll put my contact information in the Zoom notes. If you'd rather your questions be private, you can send it to me over Microsoft Teams. Just using my username, you can send a question directly to me, or I'll include my email as well. So I'll be monitoring for any questions that come in. So feel free to send them throughout the session. All right, well, thank you so much, our University Counseling Services colleagues, for being here today. We really appreciate it, and I will hand it off to you.
All right, hi everyone. My name is Yahaira Garcia, and I will be starting out this presentation to you all. I am the brand new outreach graduate employee at University Counseling Services, and I am an incoming third year in the Counseling Psychology PhD program. And lastly, I use the pronouns she, her, hers. I will also let my two colleagues introduce themselves before we get started.
Okay, I'll go. I'm Mariko Lin. Of course, I work at University Counseling Services, and I am the Education Prevention Outreach Director and also Assistant Director.
Hi, everyone. My name is Susie Stadelman, and I use she, hers, and I'm the Education Prevention Outreach Coordinator and the Suicide Prevention Coordinator within Counseling Services.
Well, thank you, Susie and Mariko. Before we get started, I just want to throw out a little caveat for you all that although we are presenters and facilitators and we work at University Counseling Services, this workshop doesn't constitute as mental health treatment or therapy. We also encourage those who may be needing support to seek out mental health support through our University Counseling Services. You can call us to schedule a same-day appointment if need be, and someone can put in the number in the chat. That would be great, but I'll say it for you all if you want to write it down. That is 541-346-3227 if you all want to contact the counseling services. Oops, Susie. Oh, thank you. All right, so just to get a feel for the virtual room, since unfortunately we can't be, in front of you as we would like to be, we're going to do a quick icebreaker activity. I'm going to read a series of statements to you all, and again, adjusting for being on Zoom instead of snapping. If you would like to use your react buttons down at the bottom of your screen, if you agree with the statements or identify with them, you can also feel free to snap or pat your leg or write a comment, whatever it is that you feel like it. So I'm going to be scrolling through your profiles at the top too. So if you'd like to show yourself and show your video, that'd be great because I want to see who I'm talking to. So first things first, react or snap if you are from Oregon. let's see. Oh, yay, Nargonian. Perfect, awesome. Oh, this is fun. Okay, let's see. React if you are from somewhere else. Let's see. I'll snap since I'm from Arizona. Awesome. All right. Snap or react if you've turned in an assignment late or maybe not at all. Ugh, let's see. The truth, come on, be honest. Oh, yay. All right, well, maybe I shouldn't be yaying that, but I'm yaying your honesty. That's what I'm doing. All right, so next one, react if you have argued with your parents, your teacher, or another adult. Guilty as charged. Let's see. Okay, all right, thank you all. Let's see, next one. These are getting a little more serious. React if you have been called a name or something hurtful was done to you. Okay. All right, thank you. The next one, how about react if you have called someone a name or hurt someone else? Okay. Thank you all for your honesty. All right, how about the next one? React if you got so angry that you scared someone else. Okay, not as many reactions. All right, the next point. How about react if you got so angry that you scared yourself? Okay, moving on through. All right, thank you. How about react if you have ever felt alone? Oh, this one resonates with more people. Okay, I'll snap to that. All right, next point. React if you have gone through a hardship at school or at home. Okay, this one also seems to resonate with you all. And okay, and the very last point for us is react if you have dealt with mental health issues or love someone who has. Okay. All right, so almost everyone. Well, thank you everyone for participating and for sharing. I know some of these questions were a bit more personal as we moved on through the activity, and just, you know, want to thank you for being vulnerable. It really means a lot. Okay. So now that maybe these questions have you feeling some kind of way, we're going to do a quick activity to kind of, you know, help you with that. It's a mindfulness activity. And this particular one is a great tool to ground yourself if you're ever feeling overwhelmed. The idea with a mindfulness activity, and this one in particular, is that if you focus your mind on something else, the stressful feelings will slip away and you can kind of refocus. The therapists at the counseling center often use this activity with their clients. I know I have, and it's been pretty useful. So let's practice. If you can just get settled in wherever you're at, in your room, your backyard, wherever it may be. I want you to look around you and find 5 things that you can see. And you can say them out loud or say them in your head. Okay, now, how about 4 things that you can touch? All right, maybe 3 things that you can hear. Two things that you can smell. And then the last one is think of a thing that you're grateful for. And you can say that out loud as well or keep it to yourself. All right. Awesome. Thanks, guys. All right. So moving on. We're here to talk about stress, right? Some things you'll probably encounter as college students. I know the feeling quite well. So what is it? What is stress? Well, stress is our physiological and psychological response to internal and external events. It's when our demand exceeds our capacity. And stress can look different for everyone. I like to think of stress as being kind of like on a sliding scale. So for example, what that means is maybe something that I find extremely stressful might be completely and totally unstressful to you. We're all individuals, we're all unique, and we have different experiences that can impact our perception of our ability to cope with, any given situation. So with, that in mind, is stress good or is it bad? Who knows, right? Okay, I want you to think about that throughout this presentation. Okay, now if you look at this beautiful curve here, it shows how stress can affect our performance. On your left, in the green section, stress levels are low, but so is performance, which is kind of like, what? The way it works is that when our stress levels are low, we are less productive. So in other words, like a moderate level of stress is more motivating. For example, I think about like deadlines. Deadlines motivate me, they're like looming, and it's just like, gotta get it done, and things get done. On the other end, in the red, is where we approach burnout, which is where we don't want to be. This is when levels of stress are so high that your ability to cope has been exceeded and you are far less productive. So the goal is to increase our resiliency so that we can handle challenging situations without burning out. It's also helpful to know when you're feeling burnt out or starting to feel burnt out so that we can practice coping skills. So that kind of poses the question of, there we go. How do you know when you are stressed? This is going to be a little interactive. So if I can get maybe 2 people to unmute themselves or write a comment of how you know when you are too stressed or too anxious. Does anyone have any examples of when you know when you're too stressed or too anxious? Crying, okay. I feel that 100%. Anyone else? Let's see, I'm opening the chat. One more person. I have trouble focusing on the task that is making me stressed. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And these 2 I identify with 100%, especially the crying. I'm a total crier. Oh, another one, let's see. I get annoyed about super minor things and jumping from one thing to another. Yeah, so there seems to be, different varieties of how people, how stress, impacts them. There's signs and there's symptoms. So thank you all for sharing that. So some of you touched on some of these examples, but oftentimes when we're stressed, it can affect our bodies without us necessarily knowing like why or what is going on. This stress manifests in physical signs, and some common symptoms are a stomach ache, headache, dizziness, eye strain. Is it from staring at my computer for like ever, or is it because I'm stressed? Maybe it's both. Sweaty palms and sleep problems, and this could be sleeping too much or too little. Stress can also affect the way that we feel. You might feel afraid to make decisions. You maybe feel anxious, tense, nervous, or really just unable to relax. And stress also affects our mood. It may make you feel a little more irritable, or as someone mentioned earlier, I tend to get more emotional and cry when I'm feeling stressed. If we're feeling overwhelmed, it may change the way that we behave. So this may look like maybe withdrawing from your social support, your support system, whatever that may be, maybe even your responsibilities. You may find that when you're stressed, you may have like less stress-free conversations. So an example of this is, you're studying and you're really stressed out. And this might be a dated example since you can't really run into people now, but maybe you run into a fellow classmate and you talk about the assignment or the exam that you're both stressed. And so now you're having a conversation about the stress in the assignment, and it's just, you're feeding off of them and they're feeding off of you, and it just doesn't help anyone out. Those types of interactions don't really relieve our stress. Okay. And now when we're feeling really stressed and tense and overwhelmed, it can affect the way that we think. It might change the way that we think about ourselves. It can alter our perception of our ability to overcome what we're stressed out about, and some negative or discouraging thoughts can come up, like maybe saying to yourself that you're not good enough, that this is horrible, that this is unbearable, or you may catastrophize thinking that I'm going to, flunk out of school. Those are, really common thoughts. These things happen, these thoughts and these things happen, and they're oftentimes, interconnected. The example being, let's say that I'm feeling overwhelmed and I feel like I might flunk out of school, I might drop out. This causes me, to withdraw more from my friends and from my family and from my classes. I feel tense and I can't sleep, and that makes me irritable, and it just piles on, and I just, do it. I drop out. These, things happen. It's all too common. These are just some examples of the signs and symptoms and how they can look like and show up in different ways. That's just one example. They can, look completely different to you. It's just really important to know what the signs and the symptoms are for each and every one of you, so that you can recognize when you're feeling overwhelmed. Then you can address these concerns rather than letting them compound on one another. So with that being said, what are some, causes of why students feel this way? Well, here are some concerns that have to do with the circumstances of being a college student. Not just a new college student, but just in college. Most students feel this or experience these at one point or another. There are definitely others. These are some of the most common concerns generally, and ones that we see at the counseling center. So one is academic stress, difficult life experiences, maybe that's the loss of a loved one. Life doesn't really stop for school. Transitions or adjustment. College is a pretty unique experience, and students, do face an adjustment period. I want to go ahead and normalize that. So if you kind of identify that you're feeling that way, it's totally normal. Relationships, relationships aren't easy, especially, now with so many, guidelines and restrictions. It's difficult. And so is homesickness. Homesickness is also, really real and really valid. Comfort is familiar, and being in a completely unfamiliar environment can be kind of jarring and uncomfortable at times. So it's okay to miss home, even if you live in Eugene, or if you live across the world. It's okay to be homesick. Now, on the flip side of stress is resilience. And resilience is our ability to prepare for, navigate, and overcome our challenges, our ability to identify our strengths, our capacity to change and transform, our acceptance of what is, our vision of what can be, and my favorite thing about resilience is thriving, not just surviving. Now, I want you all to think of a time when you faced a challenge and how did you work through it? This is I really enjoy this question, but for the sake of time, I'm going to just not ask you all to participate, even though I would love to hear your stories. Additionally, what are some of your coping strategies? What are some healthy ways that you manage your stress? Maybe what are like not so healthy ways that you manage your stress? Just some food for thought questions about how it is that you deal with your stress. As you're thinking through your own personal coping strategies, here is a list of some common strategies. Take a moment to read through the list and think about your favorite ones. I will go ahead and share one of mine, which is to be active. I like to run, I like to cycle, I like to swim as a coping strategy that gets me outside and away from my computer, from technology, from buildings, and lets me, just think of what's ahead of me. So if we just keep moving on. I also want to tell you a little more about another one of my favorite coping strategies, and this is discussing growth mindset. This will help you hopefully build your resilience also a little more. Some of you may have an idea of what a mindset is, and some of you may be like, what the heck is that? Well, mindset is a set of attitudes that we hold or have about something. It's the way we think about things. People hold different kinds of mindsets about different things. We have different mindsets about intelligence, abilities, skills, creativity, and so on. Some people have a fixed mindset. And they think that their abilities, their skills, their talents are set in stone and can't be changed, that they are static. And others have a growth mindset. They believe that their abilities, their skills, their intelligence can grow with time and experience. So what does a fixed mindset look like? Well, it's thinking things like, I'm no good at this, so why should I even try? Or this is too hard, I could never do that. Now, what does a growth mindset look like? Well, a growth mindset would look like in these situations is instead of thinking, I'm no good at this, a growth mindset would look at the situation as, what am I missing? Or this is too hard could possibly be an opportunity to think about things and learning how they work. I can learn to do that. It might take some time, but I'm going to give it a try. Similarly, at these last two, I've made a mistake. It's terrible. How about thinking, mistakes are a part of learning? And instead of thinking, I'm not as smart as my friends, you can think of, learning takes time. I'm going to try my hardest regardless. This page shows you a little more characteristics about growth mindset. You are now college students, welcome. It's really easy to be caught up in thinking that everyone here is succeeding and winning 100% of the time. I want to kind of help demystify the learning process and build resilience by telling you that failure is part of the learning process. You can all succeed despite it. Trust me, I failed countless times. I wouldn't be here if I hadn't. And I also guarantee that the most esteemed professors that you will meet during your time here at the University of Oregon have also experienced failure before. And I, encourage you all to log on to office hours and ask them about it. I'm pretty sure they'd be happy to answer those questions. And then one last coping strategy before we finish up is showing, gratitude. Just a quick one is just think of three things that you are grateful for. And yeah, dwell on that for a minute or two. But that's it for me.
Okay, I'm not seeing any questions in the chat. Rebecca, have you received any questions that we should address now or wait till the end?
I would say we could go ahead and wait till the end if you all wanted to cover resources and talk a little bit about counseling services at U of O. That would be great.
Okay, great. So we'll move into the next part of our presentation, which is just sharing with you a little bit more about mental health services and specifically, obviously, the department that we all work in. So this is sort of the very quick synopsis of who we are and what we do. And I think my dog sees a squirrel, so she might bark in a second, but I will try to get through this. So if this is the only thing you remember about University Counseling Services, this is what we want you to remember, which is that we offer free and confidential mental health services with professionals who specialize in college mental health. And we'll dive a little bit more into some of the services.
All right, I wanted to share with you how you access services. So first step, the main one that we want to encourage you all to do is if you're wanting services is just call the Counseling Center or Counseling Services. So our main number is 541-346-3227. You can find that on our website and you can schedule then a same day appointment. So just know you will get to speak with somebody right away within that day. I also want to share that, if you're in immediate crisis or something comes up and you're under a lot of stress, you can come to the Counseling Center. We are just not promoting drop-in hours because we want to be mindful to reduce a high density in our lobby. So just know if you really need to be helped, you can always come to the Counseling Center. But otherwise, most of our services these days are through teletherapy, so through this sort of Zoom setting. So of course you can have individual therapy and group therapy, lots of different group therapy options, including ones related to creating healthy relationships or things of certain topics like anxiety or depression. And we also have support groups for people of different identities, whether Black and African American students, Latinx students, also transgender or non-binary students, and then also students that identify as LGBTQ. I do want to share that you can also receive in-the-moment support by phone as well by just calling our Counseling Center.
Okay, and then we just want to share about some of our identity-based specialists that we have in the Counseling Center. And some of these kind of overlap with some of the identity-based groups that we offer. So we do have a specialist for Black and African American students, Latinx students, undocumented students, international students, and we have a team that works with, like Marika was saying, trans, gender expansive, non-binary students. And then our other service that we wanted to share with you is some of our case manager support. So all students have access to appointments with our case managers, and you can call our center to schedule one of those. And there's also an online form on our website if you prefer to sign up via the internet. And our case managers are really helpful for students, particularly if they're trying to navigate insurance. So like I said at the top, all of our services are free, but if you're looking to navigate insurance either in Eugene or potentially other places where you may be physically located, they can help you figure out that sort of thing. And even just sort of figuring out like the lingo or the language of insurance. So things like deductibles and in-network and out-of-network and all that sort of thing. I know that when I started college and even now, I still sometimes have to like Google things to make sure I understand what I'm doing. They're also, they maintain a database of all kinds of providers, including low cost and no cost services. And they also are pretty skilled at connecting you to other campus resources, including places like academic advising or the Accessible Education Center, those sorts of things.
And I love the question I saw from Erin. So the answer is yes and yes. So when we have, with our identity specialists, both they have specialized training in that population, but they also identify as such. And so we do want to share, we have a very diverse staff with all different cultural identities, even beyond race and ethnicity. So thanks for your question. So in terms of additional supports that we provide, if you're ever concerned about a peer or friend on campus, you just know you can always call us and we can talk you through the situation and how you can support that friend. We also have our after-hours support and crisis line. So it's just our main line whenever we're closed. So, you know, after 5 o'clock, weekends and holidays, if you need that additional support, just give us a call. You don't have to be in crisis. It's just, if you need that additional support, it's there. We also have our Let's Talk program. So in a pre-COVID world, it's basically having our specialists in satellite locations, and then we would provide office hours for students to check in. It would be one-on-one, no paperwork needed, first come, first serve. But now with COVID, we are actually going to do that remote. So there'll be Zoom links available to you, and you'll get to know the shifts. You can find that information on our website. So it's called the Let's Talk program. We also have the Collegiate Recovery Center. So for any student that is, who consider themselves in recovery, it's basically, well, one, there's a physical location in the EMU on the 3rd floor, but it's a community of students that are in recovery. They have educational events, social events, and things like that, and get one-on-one support. We also have our education and prevention program. I do want to highlight the wellness workshop. So if you love this session right now with Yahida, she'll be providing wellness workshops twice a week throughout the year. And so Wednesdays it's on stress and anxiety, and then there will be specific topics about stress and anxiety each week as well. And then there's usually a rotating workshop that happens at Thursdays at 2. And our first few are going to be on the adjustment to college. So the first one's adjustment to college for college students in general. The second one is for adjustment to college for first-gen college students, and the next one's for students of color. So just know you can go on our website for that information. And as you can see, we have a whole bunch of mental health wellness campaigns and suicide prevention program.
We also have a number of online or remote resources available through our website. So we have a list of common concerns. So that slide that Yahira shared earlier, it kind of dives into more details about what that can look like, what you can do, how you can sort of support a friend. We also have coping strategies. So again, some of the things that Yahira shared, we have a number of those, and those include things like links out from our website as well. So things like TED Talks or podcasts or ways that you can engage in some of those things, worksheets, that sort of thing. We also maintain a blog that we discuss lots of different wellness and mental health topics. I think we have about 3 or 4 years of blog posts now. We have a newer resource, we call them our well-being assessments. And so it's a totally anonymous screening that you can find on our website. And we have 3 of them. One is for mental health, one is for alcohol use, and one is for cannabis use. So you can kind of get a sense of where you are if you aren't sure like how you're doing and you want sort of a screening tool to maybe help you figure that out. And then we also, in the spring, started a podcast, and those can be found on our website as well. And then just how to contact us. I think we've mentioned our phone number a few times. That's probably the quickest, best way to, have any of your questions answered or schedule any sort of appointment. Also, we've mentioned our website. That's another good place to look for information. And then we are located in the Health Counseling and Testing Center building, which is right on the corner of 13th and Agate, or across from Oregon Hall. We're located on the 2nd floor of that building. And then lastly, we just want to share with you that we are on a couple of social media channels. And so we do encourage you to follow us on either or both of these platforms to get wellness tips, hear about what programming we're doing, how to get involved, our student involvement, that sort of thing. And I think we just want to kind of close by saying thanks for coming today. And We wish you well, and all of our email addresses are on this slide if you want to email us directly about any questions. And then I think it's time for Q&A.
Thank you so much, Yahaira, Mariko, and Susie. We really appreciate it. That was great. We did have a few questions come in. One specifically, which we talked a little bit about, just homesickness. Any suggestions? The student says that they're going to be far away from their family for their first time ever. Any tips for homesickness?
I could give some initial thoughts for homesickness. And I know in this COVID world, it can be a little bit harder to connect or socially connect with others. But I would say when you get here, part of it's trying to find who your new social support is. So really taking those opportunities that you can find where you feel at home, that you can feel comfortable to interact with people that are here. But I also want to say for the people that are at home, I would say before you leave is to have a discussion about what support looks like, how often you imagine talking to them, or how that would look like, or even just saying like, when I'm in that space, this is what I need. I need you to just listen to me, or do you want for them to problem solve, or whatever like support looks best for you is something that I would recommend to talk about. Those are a few things that come to mind. I'd be looking at Yahaira or Susie if you have some additional thoughts.
I guess I could just share like more from my personal experience. So I actually came to the U of O as a freshman. I'm an alum of the university, and I came from a really small town in Oregon, about 4 hours away. So I know this isn't everyone's experience, but for me coming to U of O, it was like huge. Like my town is less than 10,000 people. And so just the number of students who go to U of O is like double where I came from. So I had a really hard time. Like I went to school K through 12, like we had one elementary, one middle, one high school. Like I never had to find a new friend group. So I really struggled with homesickness, and I didn't expect it. I was like so ready to get out of my hometown and like have new experiences. And so I guess I'll just share like it's totally normal. I think the other thing that caught me off guard was I thought I'd be homesick for like maybe a week or two and then it would go away. But I actually experienced the most homesickness coming back after winter break, because fall term, everything was like new and exciting and I was learning. And I think I gave myself like more self-compassion that like, this is going to take time. But I remember like driving down the driveway of my hometown, of my house, and being like, I can't believe I have to go back to Eugene. Like, this is so hard. So I guess I just want to share, like, it takes time. And I totally agree with what Mariko said. Like, I think what like made me feel a lot more connected to U of O and Eugene was finding like my niche. So like finding friends and colleagues to share with and find a new support system, but just that it takes time.
Great, thank you. And sorry if you hear dogs barking in the background. I also have 2 little dogs that are very barky. Another question we got is just about procrastination. Any tips for students who know this is already an issue? And then we got a similar question, but specifically about test taking anxiety. Any tips with if you get stressed when you take tests?
I can say something about the procrastinating. This is actually advice that I've given clients before, and actually heard from a professor here at the University of Oregon. Was kind of changing my mindset about like what productivity was. Again, mindsets, growth mindsets. Productivity is, maybe sitting at your laptop for hours and hours and hours, and that is being productive. Well, this professor kind of helped me change that by saying that productivity could be, a pebble, a rock, or a boulder. That, each individual size, of a pebble or rock or a boulder kind of makes progress in kind of moving a mountain. One day it could be a pebble. It could be 15 minutes of sitting down and writing, and that's okay. If that's what your capacity is, that's perfectly okay. It's better than doing nothing at all. Sometimes it could be a rock. It could be an hour. Perfect. And sometimes it could be a boulder. Maybe you can sit down and write that paper or finish that lab or, do something else. I think self-compassion is really important with procrastination. Kind of just identify like where you're at, what's on your plate, and try and be organized. And Yeah, I think that's a lot of different things that I threw at you, but definitely the pebble, the rock, and the boulder have really helped me out. And I've been in college, oh my gosh, for years now, since 2012. So just learn something new every day.
If I were to just add one thing, I would just ask yourself to just raise your own self-awareness around what the fear is, because usually it is a fear of failure, fear of it's not going to be enough, fear of it's not going to be perfect. And so, I mean, I think part of this kind of runs aligned with what Yahida says, because I get that oftentimes when I have like an important email or something huge, I need a project that I need to usually do at my computer. I'll just say, okay, Mariko, 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just break through that barrier to just get it started and it'll flow right after that. So that's something that works for me.
Great, thank you. That's something I can definitely identify with, being a perfectionist and so procrastinating until I absolutely cannot anymore. Okay, well, I think we just have time for one more question. Let's see here. Oh, so one we have here is if a student already has a mental health diagnosis and they're coming to UVO for the first time, you already touched a little bit about how they could get connected with a therapist here in Eugene. So you have case managers that can help them get connected, which is great. But do you have any other recommendations? Because they had a question specifically about accommodations.
Yeah, I would certainly say just to get in touch with the Accessible Education Center. So oftentimes the staff at the counseling services are working hand in hand with the advisors over at AEC. So I would say schedule an appointment with them and then say, this is something that I struggle with. And oftentimes it'll be your therapist that'll help to provide a letter of support to get those accommodations. So yeah, AEC, I would say get that appointment right away when you come onto campus, because the sooner you can get those accommodations, the easier it'll be for you. So good question.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much. I think we're about wrapping up here in terms of time. I really appreciate you joining us today. I think this is a really important topic going into students' first fall term, especially, just with everything being a little bit different with remote classes and everything. So yeah, really encourage you to look into all the great resources you heard about today. And if you have any concerns or questions about your schedule or anything else, I'm again with the Office of Academic Advising. Our phone number, I'll also put in the chat here. It's 541-346-3211. You can call our front desk to schedule or talk to an advisor on drop-in. So if you do have any stressors about your schedule or questions that you have about academic issues coming up, don't hesitate to reach out. But thank you everyone so much for joining us, and we hope you check out the rest of our Success Series sessions this week. We'll have one a day, so from today through Friday, but then we actually have 2 on Thursday. We have one later in the evening with our Tykes and Hall advisors, which will actually be an Instagram Live, but the rest will be at this time, 3 o'clock through Zoom. So please check out our other sessions as you prepare for your first fall term. Thanks everyone.